We're recording.
Okay, very good. All right. Hello, everyone. This is Consuelo Lara.
I'm Madeline Cronenberg.
And here we are today on the next episode of Between Two Teachers. It's Friday, April the 17th. We're coming to you from the sacred lands of
the Chochenyo Karkin Ohlone peoples.
Yes, honoring them. And
their land is getting cleaner every day as we stay home, right?
Goodness.
That is one of the things. The Chochenyo Karkin Ohlone people, the land is getting more and more as they left it, as they lived in it, right? As our animals are coming out and the air is cleaner.
Yes, the water, everything.
Mm-hmm.
So today we're going to start with, we're kind of all over the place because of this pandemic. So many things are happening, but we'll start like we usually do with what's happening at the federal, state, and then we'll come to the local issues that we have. So starting with the federal level.
Yeah. All right, I can talk a little bit about this. On the, I'll put a link in to a list of the resources, which I keep in Trello, and I hope people do go over and take a look at it. Next week, I'm going to try to do a screen share to show what that Trello list looks like. And if we get to that, that'll be a big deal. Anyhow, what we have, what I've got on here is the list of resources, and there's a list that's been put out for employees, for workers by the California Labor Federation. And it's a very complete list of resources that working people can use during the pandemic. And so there's that list, which includes statewide and local places that folks can go. And it also includes, let me just pull it up for myself. It includes resources that which I should have mentioned in the last meeting, but resources for support services for workers, resources, and there are resources in here for undocumented workers, the Undocumented Workers Relief Fund of California, Undocumented Workers Employment Rights, and the total list of executive orders that the California government has put in, and job opportunities like Onward CA. They've opened a list that's coordinated with LinkedIn about where jobs are. So all of those are in this list from the California Federation, but Labor Federation. I also have a list in here that I thought was the most comprehensive of the ones I looked at, from a law firm called Lozano Smith. And they have a list of all of the things that board members need to know about, right? All of the legal implications of the pandemic on public agencies, but in particular on school boards. So that if somebody's interested in that, and I know actually in terms of who watches this, there are people in the school board world who watch us. And so that list is there. If you didn't know about it, that list is there. And I think the Lozano list is the most complete. And they've got resources. Let me pull it up. They've got copies of, in addition to the copies that they have of the link to the executive order itself, they've done what are public legal guidances, where they've just done an analysis that, for whatever reason, is not just for is for anybody, because it's their legal, it's up there publicly. So anybody who's interested in seeing what their analysis is of what's going on, they call it a client news brief, and they have them on the CARES Act, on special considerations for students with exceptional needs, how to address COVID with your governing board Brown Act, right? The explanation of how the Brown Act now works. All of that information is on that resource link from Lozano Smith. Also, California Community College and California Department of Education guidance material is on there. So just for what it's worth. In addition, after that, I was just gonna mention the effort everybody's struggling with for online graduations. And that's a national issue, right? Everybody's closed. I mean, in California, there is California has 10,521 school districts, or schools, 10,521 schools. One of them is open, and it's called Outside Creek. And Outside Creek Elementary School in Tulare County has not closed. Now, not everybody is going, and there's an online presence, but Dr. Bravo, who runs Outside Creek, is going to be famous at the end of this as the person who kept his school open. But everybody else is online, and they're looking for ways to do their graduation ceremonies. And it'll be really interesting to see how they all play out over the next year, right? And how online graduations have happened before, because you've had online schools before who've all done them. But this is different. People are figuring it out. You see one of them, one thing I saw this morning that was the most interesting, and I put a link into this on here too, is one school district. The teachers had signs printed and personally delivered a sign with balloons attached to it and put it in the front of the house of every senior. And this sign said, "This is a senior of this, here lives a graduating senior of XYZ high school." And they had a visit from one of their teachers to put it in front of their house.
Oh, wow.
Now, that is a creative thing to do.
Very creative.
Right? I was really impressed. So anyway, there are many, we're learning all these different ways, and West Contra Costa hasn't decided yet, along with many other organizations, other districts. It's a big decision how we're going to do it, or how it's going to play itself out. So there's that. Then there's one other thing I saw that I'm not sure has been, well, it's been discussed to some degree. 5 things that should happen next year. 5 great ideas for supporting students in the fall. And the first one, which may or may not happen, because of course California is not going to have any money, and neither is any other state. So what the funding for education is a question. The first one is extend the school year to help make up for the time that was lost. The second one is provide extra tutoring. And there may be ways to do that by growing your volunteer programs and doing tutoring like this, which kids are used to now. So you could get an online tutoring core, which I think is a whole other thing, right? If you had classroom volunteers, but they're really online, you might not have to go through any of this. You would just have to change the mechanism for becoming a volunteer. So I think that's something we need to look at. The third one is something we can do and really people should look at, and it's looping.
Oh, yes.
You should put that on the agenda.
Oh,
Think
my
about
God.
that. Doesn't that make sense? So for anybody who doesn't know, looping is you keep your same teacher 2 years in a row, right? In some school systems, it's even more than 2 years in a row, but 2 years. So that means that you left Miss So-and-so who teaches 2nd grade, and now you're going to go to the new teacher, Mr. So-and-so, who teaches 3rd grade. No, you're not. She's going to teach you in 2nd grade and in 3rd grade. Now, no, we're not prepared to do that at this moment, but I'm betting there would be an interest in it.
That's interesting. I mean, there's so many great stories about looping that I've heard in the past. Way back.
Absolutely.
Oh my God.
They've done it. I'll post this too, because there have been. I had it on my list of things we should look at. That was on my list for years of things that should happen, and it's been done. Right? In every place, every school, throughout the district, our district and other districts, certainly it's been done. And it never doesn't work. It always works.
Always. It
only doesn't work if you have a disagreement between a teacher and a family or a student. Well, that student can pull out and go into the other class if there's another class. But but generally speaking, it is a real winner. And for this, it really makes sense that looping sort of rise to the top, right? As a way that you don't have to say goodbye. And now when you come back and you want to share your experiences, you're sharing them not with somebody who just met 5 minutes ago, but with somebody that you missed all summer.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Oh,
when I saw looping on here, I thought that's the that is the easiest one, I would think. And the teachers union, everybody should have a conversation
yeah,
around that.
absolutely. Good
The
thing.
other ones that they talked about is expand or at least avoid cutting the number of adults prepared to help students with trauma and mental health needs. So how all of that is going to work, the crisis, how we bring back, we have folks that are prepared when there's a crisis in the classroom, but how we go ahead and use those folks when everybody comes back into the district. And I'm sure other districts, we're all looking at that. And the last one is something we can also do, which is integrate coronavirus into the curriculum.
Ooh,
Don't make believe this never happened, and not just integrate it in terms of its of the whole science. Everything we've learned a lot more about science as a planet. We've learned a lot more because of this, but all of the impacts that it's had. Right? Talk about it and find ways to continue to use it. So I thought those were 5 great ways to support students.
very
And
good.
and things that we can do. There also was the other thing I wanted to talk about with California is the California philanthropy has come in to help set up grants for immigrants and refugees and families with undocumented children. And we've talked about philanthropy before, but philanthropy is like everything else. They're rising to the occasion, or some of them are rising to the occasion here. So there's been a real effort on their part to write to the governor to get, and he did set up he's the only governor who's done it so far, set up some supports for undocumented families. But that needs to grow, and we need to continue that in the school district, which we have done, but we need to continue. So there's that. And then what else? Closing the school year, I have a link to Mr. Buettner's LAUSD is again a leader in so many ways in looking at distance learning and how their teachers are adopting it. So I think, we want to continue to follow them. They wrote a letter together with San Diego Unified and requested $3 billion specifically for distance learning.
Oh,
So I think that's something that's going to have to go in the budget, and Superintendent Thurmond, Tony is going to have to look at how we reassess the budgeting and budgeting around everything that will promote distance learning in the future, right? So it's not just what we have right now. What we have are emergency remote classrooms that were set up without any real plan,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
They don't fit under. They are just what they are. They're an emergency plan. That's why nobody's getting credit. That's why everybody understands that this learning is an opportunity for teachers and students to just figure it out. But in fact, distance learning has happened for years, and there are ways to do it so that people do have the opportunity to actually get credit, and teachers do have an opportunity to really teach. And we need to grow that.
I know people who have gotten their doctorates online, and then every once in a while they go across the country to whatever university, and then they come back, but it's all online.
So adult education has done it for years. It's just, K-12 hasn't.
That's right. That's right.
That's really the thing. So now K-12 has been introduced to it, right? And it's a natural thing. These are children who are digital natives who were born into a digital, right? So it's not like it was before. And even their parents are digital natives. Now it's just the grandparents that aren't, and they're all learning.
Yeah.
Everybody's learning. So I think it's interesting that LAUSD and San Diego asked for the money. I think that we're going to need more than that, but probably we can coordinate with the tech companies and everybody who's part of the whole distance learning world. And one of the things that's happening, we talk about career technical education.
Yes.
They are able to use this now. They're doing virtual job shares because they're still working. they never stopped working, because for many folks, there was never a problem with suddenly going digital and going virtual, because they already were there. So, you know, Google sent everybody home from work way before London Breed did. So that means is that those folks are available for job shares. And there are a couple of CTE programs now that are doing exactly that. So that if you're in a pathway, it's not a big deal to expect to be able to bring someone into your classrooms who is sitting at home at their desk at work and share what they do.
Exactly. The resources are there. We can definitely pull them in and make those collaborations.
Yeah.
Be innovative in how we deliver this. There's so many possibilities we haven't even explored.
There really are possibilities. This is the thing. I mean, the real essence of this is there are possibilities to increase resources.
Yes.
And that's what how we have to look at this, right?
Yeah.
Because in its essence, first, shelter in place means, now I'm shutting everybody out. But the truth is, and you are, if you don't have the internet, if you don't have electricity, then you're a hermit somewhere and you are shutting everybody out. But that's not who we are. And here we are closing the digital divide, making sure, you know, as we've continued to do that, but all of a sudden, it's not just a few people talking about it. It's everybody talking about it. And that's the big change. So there's also a website now for educating special needs children on distance learning.
Okay.
And that's something for families and folks who are in the special needs community to just take a look at. But that's been developed as well. I talked about Outside Creek, virtual graduations. It's time to talk about Mr. Duffy and what's going on in West Contra Costa.
Oh yeah, so our local activity that's going on. Of course, on the number one on the list is the digital distance learning, of course, and getting that in shape. There's a lot of professional development going on for the teachers in doing that. But it's like you said, it's an emergency kind of situation. So everybody's scrambling to put all of this together. We weren't really ready for it. The big issue is equity in terms of hotspots, equipment. And so they're monitoring that very closely. And if anybody knows in our district that where they're lacking, contact them right away. There's places on the website where you can go and ask for help, because they do want to close that digital divide. They are addressing that. It's one, and that means that
they'll deliver equipment, either the laptop or some sort of internet connection, which is the hotspot, which is a physical item that you can plug into your wall and then you're online. Yeah. That's what we're talking about.
And what were those different creative ways that they can create hotspots? We were talking about.
Well, there are ways, and this has been done for years. But one of the things that I remember going to a CSBA convention or a conference years ago, and we were talking about the digital divide and how we were working with our cities and with the state, with the Emerging Technology Fund, California Emerging Technology Fund, to make sure that the digital divide was closed. And we were one of the first districts that worked together with them, also to train parents, to get people to accept it and understand that it was a good thing, right? And all of that now is moot because we're here. But one of the strategies was in very poor communities, and literally they were talking about communities, districts that are made up of children who live in migrant workers camps. Who are in the valley, right, where they're lucky they have electricity. They live in very poor circumstances because they had no connectivity. It's possible, this was a creative idea, to put the router, the connection, on a school bus.
Yep.
Take the school bus and park it next to where they live. Yep. And there it is. They have connectivity.
Yeah, and you have connectivity. So those are the kind of things we have to explore for those areas for sure. And so that's a big issue right now. And then the food services is continues on. Now, let's see, every day it's like 28,000 meals
Amazing.
that are given out. Yeah, and they always need volunteers. Please come. Richmond High is one of the places they're always needing volunteers.
Well, there are 17 places now, and
17.
right throughout the district, including churches. It's not just the schools, but there are also community locations.
Yeah, and that again, that's listed on the website too. There, pretty much, there's not going to be any summer school. When people are wondering about that, that's not going to happen. I think probably getting all this stuff and preparing for the year. That's what I think they're going to have to use summer for. And then there's the issue of the seniors and what's going to seniors.
Uh-oh. Where are you?
Are we back?
You're back.
Oh,
What
I'm
happened?
sorry. The phone rang, and then everything.
Oh, the phone rang.
Yeah, somebody called me, and the whole thing just went out.
That's right.
So,
Okay.
so now we know. Okay, I'm gonna turn that off. We were talking about seniors, so 2020.
Right.
Yeah, graduation, they're looking at the California State Department of Ed and also the various universities in terms of the requirements for seniors. And they're ensuring that all students are able to continue after college and that they're not adversely affected by all of this, so that they would still continue to move on. But in terms of graduation ceremony, that's yet to be determined. There's hasn't been anything set in stone. I don't think people really want to put others in danger, at risk, by having a large group. I just can't see that happening.
Well, it seems unlikely that it will be allowed. I mean,
Yeah,
you know, we have a governor who's mandating social distancing to keep us safe. And even with what the president said yesterday, the different stages, it doesn't look to me like we could reach one of the stage where there is unlimited social distancing by the beginning of June.
Yeah. And they're looking at the grading and using incompletes, and teachers
Right.
are contacting students. Looks like third quarter is okay. They had enough grades to give students their grades, but fourth quarter will probably be credit, no credit, pass, fail. And they're putting together again a group of people to come up with the best way to address that, especially as it relates to kids who are expecting to go to college, of course.
Right.
AP
Right.
class, go ahead.
Okay, well, and the colleges are looking at that, right? So you have a district like San Francisco that decided to give everybody an A for fourth quarter. So what does that mean? I mean, you're not going to be able to.
Yeah, I don't think that.
It probably. I mean, it makes you feel good, especially if you've never had an A before. But I'm not sure it's going to be helpful to the colleges to make a decision as to whether or not to admit you.
Yeah. That's
You know,
interesting.
so
Yeah, and the testing, my AP testing that can go online. SAT they've canceled, and so that's pending, or when they're going to bring that back. But the UC has talked about relaxing their requirements when it comes to letter grades and when it comes to testing, which, you know, begs the question, so what are they going to emphasize? And I'm thinking about, you know, your essay, your other activities. So it's really going to look at the more well-rounded student.
Right.
You know, we're not dependent on that number. Did you get that number?
Well, this is the fascinating thing. I mean, you know, all of this is so interesting. People have discussed this for years. Let's get rid of the tests. Well, we got rid of the tests. One of the things that the pandemic did was get rid of the tests. They're gone. You don't have them.
Yeah.
And you know, and so what is the consequence of that? It makes you rethink, well, what makes sense to bring back? How are you going to look at what you're going to bring back?
Yeah.
And it's really interesting, some of the way this is playing out.
Oh my goodness. And then just the last thing about the teachers, like I said, they are doing their professional development, And then there's also asking people to submit their names to support this Workers' Bill of Rights during the
Yes.
COVID from the California Labor Federation. So this is one of our call to action
Absolutely.
points.
Right.
We really
Right.
want people to do that.
That's and it's the California Labor Federation, and what that does is it says put safety first, protect union members and all workers on the front lines in this crisis. Government relief goes directly to the workers. Hold the corporations accountable. Stand up for the gig workers and other vulnerable workers. Expand paid sick leave for all workers. Doesn't this go back to healthcare, right?
Oh, yeah.
For all. Protect immigrant workers and stop ICE raids. Preserve jobs, wages, and healthcare in COVID recovery. Moratorium on evictions, foreclosures, and rent gouging. And protect and expand the right to form and join unions.
Absolutely.
That's the. So
Yeah.
I'll have a link to that in here as well. So if you want to support that, the Workers' Bill of Rights, that there's a petition to be able to do that.
Yeah, add your name to that.
Yeah.
And then my last thing is I just wanted to share this book. It is called The History of Institutional Racism in U.S. Public Schools. It's very fascinating. This would be a great book to use in an ethnic studies class at a high school. It would really be great. And it's also, you know, kind of graphic organizer kind of thing. So it's very artistic as well. This is awesome. This is an awesome document. We're going to bring you different books each time we get together.
Yes, awesome. We are, because we can. Because that's the thing about all of this, because we can. I wanted to also say a little bit about privatization. And one of the things, there's a blogger named Nancy Bailey, and one of her blogs, recent blogs, was, like vultures, they're planning to end public schools and to